Good morning, everyone. This is Rama on Riding coming to you live from a beautiful, sunny Sedona, Arizona. For those of you on our mailing list, you may have seen that Tom has hit #1 on his new book in 2 categories, so that's exciting. And also, he has released the Sedona part of the 2016 schedule. There'll be 4 retreats in Sedona next year, so not as much traveling as we have done in the past. Today, we are very fortunate to have Steve Piper, an audiobook producer, along for the ride. And I have to thank Catherine Carrigan for finding him. We have struggled with different audio production over the years, and it's a real treat to have somebody that has integrity and can produce as well. So we're excited about that. This topic is really an important topic to me. I am an audiobook junkie. I literally spend every night listening to audiobooks all night long. If I can't sleep, I listen, so it is fine. And I listen to audiobooks in my car as well. And I think that when Tom walked into my bike shop years ago, he heard the audiobook going on, and he knew that he had a captive audience here. That, oh yeah, this guy will be real easy to get into one of my retreats. So in the past, audiobooks were, not really a big part of the market. Traveling salesmen might consider listening to them in their cars, although I think in most cases it was more inspirational works that they would listen to, motivational speaking and stuff like that. My mom used to get cassettes as she was getting older from an organization, and they gave her a little cassette player to use as well. And it wasn't until fairly recently that audiobooks started to appear on the scene with a level of growth. I have a little statistic here. In 2007, there was just over 3,000 audiobook titles. In 2014, there's over 35,000. So this is a huge, huge level of growth. Currently, they're projecting over 25% growth per year. And I think that it's rather clear that audiobook growth has outstripped even ebook growth, which is projected at about 6% a year nowadays. Wow. It does appear that ebooks may have tapered off a little bit. The new ebook reader Kindles and stuff aren't new anymore. The people that have wanted them probably have already gotten them, and the rate of growth is significantly less than it was. So with that said, this is a huge growth area for us to capitalize on. And Catherine Carrigan has done, I think, 3 audiobooks at this point in time. We've struggled with the first producer to the point where, we had to get Greg, the webmaster, to reorganize the files so that they were actually usable. And I think she even started the second book working with the same guy or something like that, and it just didn't pan out. And Steve was discovered by us. Now, we do have some authors that have used the Amazon Audible platform, ACX, to develop their audiobooks. And I think that that's a wonderful platform. It does provide another feather in Amazon's cap. some of us are, well, we don't want to give up all of our control to Amazon, and so it's good to have alternatives. So, with that said, I'd just like Steve to introduce himself and tell us, kind of what his history is and why he's gotten into audiobooks at this point in time.
All right. Well, thank you. My name is Steve Piper. I am I've been a recording engineer for many years. I worked in Santa Monica for several years at a recording studio there, several major label bands, that type of thing. And I'm from Arizona, and I went there to get the experience, worked with a major label producer, and got all that done. Came back home to Arizona. It's home. My family's here. And also wasn't terribly thrilled with the dog-eat-dog part of the music industry over there. So, I decided to go independent. I love it. I'm more in control of what I do and so forth. So I've been recording for a long time, and a lot of projects that I've done have been spoken word. I have several CDs that I've produced that are poetry with music background and that type of thing. I write the music, and so it's just very natural for me to record people talking as well as singing. And then I discovered audiobooks for myself and became a big fan like you did. It just saves so much time. You can pause and start later. I mean, not just in your car, or when you're busy doing yard work, working around the house or something, just having something going. And I do listen to a lot of motivational books. I like novels as well. But I find that, going back to Catherine's book, doing things that make us feel good because we're aware of what it is. I find that if I don't listen to something motivational or something, within a few days, my attitude starts to drop. So I keep going back to that because it makes me feel good. It gives me the energy that, helps me to feel good.
Steve, what
got a little bit of are we still going?
Yeah, we're still going. I'm sorry I interrupted you. There was a pause, so I thought I'd take a moment to ask a question. But if you have something more to say, go for it, and I'll ask your question in a moment.
No problem. I just got a little freeze on the screen. But basically what I'm saying is that I feel so much better when I get more information and I get, listening to the books just really helps my attitude.
So, Steve, what, in your opinion, is the hardest component of putting together an audiobook?
I'd have to say writing the book in the first place is the biggest deal. But once that's done, it's about finding people you're on the same page with, that you can work with, finding an voice talent that fits the material that you're working with and so forth. And really, it's not a very difficult process. I mean, once you get past that, you just get in the studio and you read it, and or you get someone into my studio and I'll take care of the rest. It's it's not that hard.
So, as far as voice talent goes, in our conversations, you mentioned that you knew a number of people that are competent readers. So, what would you say are the qualifications for a good voice reader for a book?
Well, again, I mean, if it's fiction, then you want someone who's able to do, different voices and that type of thing. And if it's more of a nonfiction, more of a motivational type thing, just someone that really first has the kind of voice that fits your material. But a voice actor is really going to need the kind of training that we talked about earlier and be able to know that when you speak a sentence, you don't breathe in the middle of a sentence. You know when to breathe, it's between sentences, and they've had a lot of practice, and their timing is good, their tempo when they're reading is real good, and that type of thing. It's just a little bit of talent and a little bit of creativity.
So we did talk about this before the recording started, but I do need to ask this again. You know, there was at one time a belief that our listeners wanted to hear an audiobook read by the author. My experience is that that's almost an impossibility because of our skill set. And I would think that if you encountered that kind of situation, you'd have to deal with a lot more editing involved, start, stop kind of things. So just reiterate again, what's your thought about an author reading their own book?
Well, there are some authors that might have the skill set of being able to read well and record. Normally that's not the case. And really what happens is it becomes, for the author, it becomes a little bit more about their ego than it does the material. And as I mentioned, sometimes authors will be like re-editing their book as they're going, and they'll paraphrase what they've written, and that doesn't always come out great. But really, what you're doing is you're producing a product that you're putting out to the world, and you want the best possible performer performing it. And if that's not your skill set, then you're going to find someone to do it. And also, you're able to sit back and listen to somebody else and critique them on, this is working, this is not working, as opposed to if it's yourself, you're kind of lulled into a narcissistic kind of thing. It's like, oh, that's me reading, and la la la, where you're not really able to critique yourself as well as you would somebody else. So, that's why we would have several people do an audition for an author and say, I have these 5 people who have auditioned reading your material. Which person do you like best, kind of thing.
Well, that was going to be my next question is,
okay.
What's the process? Okay, I have a book about mountain biking. My book's called Sedona Mountain Biking. It's kind of an adventure memoir. So what would be the first step, that you would put me through if I decided that I wanted to move ahead with this?
Well, first of all, I would ask you if you had someone that you would like to read. Catherine, for instance, had someone that she really wanted to read the book, and so that's fine. If not, and you're just wanting to get started, you send me your manuscript, and I'll go through it and kind of get an idea. And again, call several voice actors, have them read a few minutes, audition for you, and then then you can choose. If one of them works, then we go that route.
Okay, so I find my voice talent and say, okay, this person sounds fine. My manuscript is 30,000 words, give or take. So number one, how long does it take to do this? And number two, how much does it cost to do this?
Okay. Well, 10,000 words fills about an hour. So your 30,000 word book would be a 3-hour book. The basic charge is $200 per finished hour to produce the book. And the only caveat is that if there are extensive chapters, like you have 50 chapters in a 2-hour book, then it might take a little extra processing. But generally, it's $200 an hour, finished hour. And when someone comes in, generally, if they are skilled, then reading the book will take about an hour and a half to 2 hours to complete 1 hour, one finished hour. So for a 3-hour book, I would expect to be in the studio with someone for 6 to 9 hours. And again, we're going to come up with a 3-hour book, which will cost $600.
Okay, so now I have my book, complete. What happens next?
What happens is you need to decide what delivery system you're going to use. There are a few different ones. First of all, there's Amazon. There's audible.com. And you mentioned that. A lot of authors know about that. You can either self-produce or you can use them to produce your book. There's CDs, which are still somewhat viable, but really I find that they're more of a giveaway kind of thing, because people are getting hip to being able to listen online, download stuff, get it from iTunes. I'd say 9 out of 10 of your customers are going to download it and not necessarily buy the CD. So you can have it on audible.com. You can have CDs, and then you can have the files on your own website that you can sell directly. That way you don't have to give anyone else a cut of the income. And so you can do that a couple of ways. If you have a super high-tech website, you can click and download like you do on iTunes, or you can just have files, have someone send you a payment and then email them the MP3 files. So there's 3 different forms of delivery, and the $200 per hour, finished hour that I charge includes one of those deliveries, and then because it takes different processing to put it in the different formats.
But once you have it done, essentially, we just pay you additional for converting it a different way. Is that correct? You don't have to redo anything.
No, don't have to redo anything. It's just a matter of, for instance, Audible wants MP3 versions at a certain bit rate, and they want it in mono. Whereas the files that I would give you to sell from your website would be in stereo, because the voice is always in mono, but then we like to add music, and it's nice to have a little bit of stereo effect when the music kicks in. And then again, for CDs, it's the same thing. It's a different file format. It would instead of MP3, it's a WAV format, which is a little higher quality. So that's it. It's just a matter of me processing it on the computer.
Sounds good. Now I'm going to unmute Catherine here, because I think she's probably the best one to answer this question.
Okay.
Catherine, what percentage of your audiobook sales go through Audible versus through your own website?
I would say 100%. I have here for everybody 2 of my audiobooks. These are 2 shorter books. This is Unlimited Energy Now, and this is Banish the Blues Now. This is my most recent one. And a couple of things. One is, for all the authors out there, I strongly encourage you, do not use John Mahoney at Raven Audiobooks. And use Steve Piper. I can't say enough wonderful things about Steve Piper, and not just because he's here, but when we're, as authors, we're going through a learning process, and part of the learning is figuring out who's good at whatever they claim they're good at and who's going to actually deliver. I made an audiobook for my book, What is Healing? And he did a really good job recording it. However, he didn't put the files in a format that are acceptable to Amazon, and I had to hire Greg, like Rama said, to fix it, which cost me extra money. And then I didn't know who else to turn to. The lady who read the book, I wanted to keep the same reader for continuity for my readers, for my listeners. So the same reader, Holly Parsons, did a wonderful job. So I had her read Unlimited Energy Now, and John Mahoney recorded it, but I had to hire Steve Piper in order to fix it because, once again, I knew that John Mahoney was problematic, but I didn't know who else to turn to. And the reader, Holly, and I had a lot of discussions about who else to hire. John Mahoney apparently primarily does porno books, which I'm sure make a lot more money than I do. But Steve, I just really give him a lot of credit. He was very thorough. They recorded the audiobook, Banish the Blues Now, in July in Phoenix. And Holly told me she had to sit on a bag of ice in the recording studio because it was so hot. But Steve really took extra care. He cared about the material. He wanted the material to be presented well. And then he did a really good job uploading it. I know that there are some authors who want to read, but this is my comment about, if you're trying to decide whether to hire somebody or to hire a professional reader, I just think about James Earl Jones. I could listen to James Earl Jones read the phone book and be captivated by that. And there's some people, just like we hopefully are good at writing, there are other people who are really good at communicating meaning and emotions by speaking. And Holly's son teaches acting in Ireland, so she did a lot of work to try to be a good reader, and she did a really good job. And you can listen to Holly, maybe not read the phone book, but her voice is very captivating and enhancing. So I strongly encourage everybody to hire a professional reader. And then Steve was so careful. And once the audiobooks were created, then what I did was I went through CD Lab, also in Phoenix, and I had some made, just like we all have friends and clients who want to buy things. And I think these particular ones, just the cost of producing them was, give or take around $6 each, right? For just, producing the thing. So the minimum order there is $25. So it's good to have those around. But like Steve said, most of the people that you're going to get are going to be people who download. And a lot of my clients, they'll ask me questions and I'll say, well, just read the book. It'll explain it. But a lot of my clients are too exhausted or too overwhelmed. But that's part of why I made the audiobooks, because it's like, well, you can just listen. And like Rama, when I first moved into Atlanta, I spent 3 hours every day of my life in the car. And I would go to the library and borrow out the audiobooks. I got to the point where I think I listened to almost every audiobook in the library at that point. So I really am compassionate. There are a tremendous amount of people in this country who spend time commuting. And even if they wanted to read a book, they don't have time to read a book because they're in the car, on the train, on the airplane, and they want the material. And I feel like we as authors, if you don't make an audiobook, you're leaving money on the table. Last month, I was meeting with my accountant, and as you can imagine, that's not my talent. So once a month, I meet with my accountant. And anyway, I had gotten Amazon put a deposit, I think it was like $550 from audiobook sales. And I was like, this is good. So, even though there is some upfront costs in producing the audiobooks, over time, if you think about the next 10, 12 years, getting that money back, it's going to probably be worth your while. And Steve is reliable, dependable. He does what he says he's going to do. He's pleasant. He's caring. This is the person you want to work with. So I can't say enough great things. And I really liked my reader, Holly, also. One of the things that Rama and Steve were talking about was the process. So just like when we write our books, you have to then edit them. And Steve and your reader will record the book. And then you have to sit there as the author. You sit there, I would be knitting or multitasking, listening to the files. And then you'll go, in chapter 3, they mispronounced, anthocyanins, and you need to re-record that. So you listen to the audiobook and then make a list of what needs to be changed. And then also work with your reader if there's any funny names or funny words ahead of time. But I really saw the importance of making it. And again, I think as authors, a lot of you that I'm looking, y'all have already written your books and published your books. Well, the next thing you could do is take that same material, spend $600 with Steve, make an audiobook. You didn't pay me to say this. And then that's going to be additional revenue and possibly also potential readers that you can reach that you didn't reach before. And I know that when I made the audiobook for my book, What is Healing, some lady wrote a review, and she told me, she said, I would listen to your audiobook when I was running. And she said, if I listened to your audiobook, I could run for 5 miles. If I didn't listen to your audiobook, I couldn't run 5 miles. So it's kind of interesting the impact that this can have. So I strongly recommend, and it's my intention now to make audiobooks of all my upcoming books using Steve and using the same reader that I had, who was very hardworking and very nice, Holly Parsons.
Catherine and Steve, this question is for both of you, and I'll ask Catherine first. Okay, so what's your impression of Audible? I know that if you click the wrong buttons in the setup, you give away, some of your profit, you tie yourself into an exclusivity. What are the ins and outs from your side of things, Catherine?
Okay, well, what's interesting about making the audiobooks, and I'll talk about Banish the Blues now, is that when I made the paperback and the ebook version, I got to decide the price of my book. And I worked really hard on Banish the Blues now. And then one of the big things was that Audible set the price. I think the price, if you want to download that audiobook, it's $6.08. So I was kind of dismayed. Gosh, I worked so hard. Steve worked so hard. Holly worked so hard. So you do not have control over the price. But then on the other hand, it's also like the ebooks. I think the ebook version of that is like $3.99. So another author friend of mine is getting ready to publish her new book. She was sitting there, trying to make decisions. And she's like, well, if I sell my book for $25, and I'm like, hello, the reality of it is you don't get to set that price if it's an audiobook. And even if, as you know, on your paperback books, you can put the price at $25 or whatever, but Amazon's still going to say, well, you may think it's worth $25 and we're going to sell it for $16.99. So it's a little bit harsher on the audiobooks, but on the bright side, that makes it really accessible for people, and hopefully lots and lots of people will buy it and download it, especially if it's user-friendly material.
Steve, when I was first researching audiobooks, there was a lot of, let's say, bad press or about Audible and the process. So from your standpoint, has that gotten cleaned up? Is it easy for you to upload to Audible? And what other insights might you have to share?
Well, yes. As you mentioned first, you do need to be careful because there's definitely a button that says exclusive or not exclusive. Of course, it defaults to exclusive. So you need to make sure you click not exclusive, because then they'll keep twice as much as, well, with exclusive, you get more money, but you're not able to sell it on your own. And again, you're still not able to set the price. So it's nice to be able to offer it for downloads or print the CDs, which you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. As far as the process for uploading it is concerned, I don't know, it's never really been much of a problem to me, but you need to be really careful. And one thing did happen when I was uploading Catherine's book last time, is that I did make one mistake. Well, there was just one word that just kept bothering me. So I called him up and I said, hey, once you click done, it's done, and then it goes into the process. And I called him up and I said, can you take it out of the done status so that I can fix this one file? And they said no problem. So I really have had a good experience with ACX. It just one thing that Catherine mentioned, the fact that you can't set the price, or the fact that ebooks and audio downloads might be going for a little bit less. One of the advantages that I was looking forward to years ago in the music business is, instead of selling CDs, you can print 10,000 CDs and sell them out, and then print 10,000 more or 20. You have a cost every time you need to print it. With an ebook or an audio book download, once it's up, you have no more cost. You don't need to remanufacture, keep putting out money to make more. So I think, well, they know that when they set the price. So that's why they offer downloads for cheaper than the physical CDs or the physical books. But again, you don't worry about it anymore. You just go to the mailbox and get your check.
Now, just to tell everyone a little bit more about Audible, from the consumer standpoint, Audible is like a Netflix type of program. You pay a monthly membership fee and you're allowed to download books. And
yes.
That is good for audiobook fanatics.
Mm-hmm.
So it is of interest. Now, there's also another component called, I think it's called Kindle Match or Kindle Match Book. Mm-hmm. What this is actually a way that when you purchase a Kindle, well, see, what I did with Deb McTiernan's book is I was talking to her about her audiobook, and she went through ACX to do her production. And I was up on her Amazon page one day, and it said, get the Audible version for $1.99 when you buy the Kindle version.
Ah, nice.
Okay? And so I did that. Of course, it took me a while to sort out how to get the Audible audio version. I actually had to call someone to find out, and you had to go to a different website called Kindle Match or Kindle Match Book. And the interesting component of this was that it downloaded to my my iPhone, or is actually my iPad, both versions. And so I could actually start reading the Kindle, and if I went to page 10 or 20 of the Kindle and then decided that I wanted to start listening, I would just hit the audio component, and it would pick up essentially where I had stopped reading from.
Nice.
And so I could listen for a while, and then if I wanted to go back to reading again, it went right to where I had left off. So it was very interesting, and I truly think that these kind of programs that Amazon has developed will continue to grow. As I mentioned early on, and I'm going to mention this again, is that currently the rate of growth for audiobooks is about 25% per year, which is phenomenal. Okay? I mean, I don't know what percentage of books, of book readers, are looking at, listening to audiobooks, but I'm sure that it's going to take over the industry and is already doing so. Okay.
Can I say something, Rama?
Yes, please.
I'm sure we've all read these disturbing statistics, but I read something the other day, and this is not new information, that once people graduate college, that 50% of college graduates never read another book again in their lifetime. And so there's this huge portion of the public, college graduates, supposedly educated people, who actually don't read books. So what we want to do as authors, I'm all about just making things easy and accessible for people. And one of the easiest ways to do that is by creating an audiobook. I say to my clients, you don't even have to read this book. All you have to do is listen, and then you'll get the information.
Hey, I'm there. I don't read anymore except online. I read news websites and sports websites and book publishing websites and things along those lines. But I cannot recall the last book that I read. It was probably a Randy Wayne White book at some point on a holiday. But now I listen to Randy Wayne White books. One of the things I wanted to get to with Steve is that we've talked about some other services that you can provide for the authors, and one of the big components that we all face is getting discovered. Finding our website in the search engines. And one of the things you've heard me say over and over again over the past 2 or 3 years is that even though Google is the #1 search engine in the world, YouTube is the #2 search engine in the world. And as a result of that, these webinars, once I record them and convert them, I upload them to YouTube because I feel that it's a great way of, getting my brand out there. So Steve and I spoke about, well, what other things can we offer to the authors? And the obvious no-brainer is a book trailer, whether it's something that we actually read, and Steve records for us, or, it came to mind that, well, heck, maybe I can have a voice talent read a chapter of my book or part of a chapter and, not have to incur the complete cost of an audiobook, development. So, Steve, maybe you can just talk a little bit about whether, #1, you can offer these kind of things, which I know you can, because we talked about it, but just to give people a little insight into what a book trailer might entail.
Okay. Well, first of all, like you said, yes, YouTube is huge. I mean, Google owns YouTube, and I've done some work in, I forget what they call it now. I've used the term 1,000 times. But a video is going to sort so much higher than a text version. I mean, I think it's 10 times more likely if you have a video on your website, Google is going to give that preference, and it'll sort much higher. So that helps quite a bit. As far as the actual audiobook trailer, just the book trailer, I think it's an awesome idea. And in that case, I think having the author, if they're comfortable doing it, having them read the book would be preferable. Because, again, I think in that case, you are connecting a product with the person, and just for a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes of reading, maybe a couple of minutes of talking about, what their inspiration was, that type of thing is huge. Because, again, you're creating a brand for yourself, and, having your face on the screen in association with your book and on a video, and I think that's just great marketing.
Well, I'm always looking at ways that we as an author can get our brand out there further. It takes a lot of effort of marketing and promoting to get to our audience. So this is something that Steve and I have talked about, and I'm sure that we're going to develop even more so. Now, over the years, a number of our authors have expressed a desire to produce, let's say, a subliminal tape of some sort, some kind of inspirational piece. And you alluded to the fact that you came through the music business and you created some music for Catherine's book. So if you would just elaborate on, number one, can you do the music? Do we need to find a band, or can you, digitally create something that would work? And number two, the production of subliminal things, would that be also something else that you could provide for us?
Yes, and yes, and yes. Basically, I have a lot of production music that I'm licensed to use, and it's something that could conceivably show up somewhere else and someone might recognize it. But with Catherine's book, I just went through several tracks that I had and found one that fit. And so if I can find something in my library that fits your book, great. I mean, there's no charge for that. It's just I just put it in the appropriate places. I do compose music and all different types. I mean, so if there wasn't something that fit from the library and you had a real good idea of what you wanted to sound, or usually I can come up with something, based on the tempo of the book and the material. I could compose, certainly, and I play, I'm multi-instrumentalist, so I can play just about any instrument. Of course, there would be an extra charge for that. I haven't really thought about what that charge would be. I actually did compose something for a book many years ago. It was Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul. And so I recorded some guitar, just composed a few little bits. So yeah, I can do that either way. And as far as subliminal is concerned, that's very intriguing. In fact, I've looked into it. I haven't done any of these recordings yet, but there are certain frequencies that you add to the recording that activate the brain waves. I'm not sure whether it's the alpha or the beta, but I mean, it actually, these frequencies that are also subliminal open up your mind to absorb the material. So I know that's possible. Certainly I can do it. I just need to do a little more research into what those frequencies are. So.
Thanks, Steve. You've provided a lot of insight into this process. You've given us a little bit of the costing. At this point in time, gang, if anyone is interested in pursuing work with Steve, it's probably best to send me an email, and I'll send the info to Steve. At this point in time, Tom Bird Group is not making any money above and beyond what Steve charges. We're just happy to find somebody that can deliver for us in a credible, with integrity. And, I think that in the future, this is going to be more and more of something our group is going to want to do. If there are any questions that you have for Steve or Catherine or myself, I'm good at making up answers. I can't guarantee any of them are any good, but, I'm willing to take a shot. You can certainly, either raise your hand as Tom Pitts has already done. So I'm going to unmute Tom Pitts, and then it looks like Bill has a question. So Tom, you're unmuted first.
Okay, for fiction books, I thought about doing, actually having two readers, one female and one male at least, to make it sound like some of the old radio shows. And so you'd and to me, that would make it more interesting. And Rama, you could probably have an opinion on that. And if I should do that, if I have a male and female reader, would it double the cost or what?
Well, not exactly. My charge, actually, and I didn't delineate this before, my charge is the $200 per finished hour is my work. The voice talent is separate. So, yes, you would have to pay 2 different voice actors, but my charge would not change at all. And I think it's a great idea. I love, especially in fiction, it's good to have, I like the idea of the 2 people interacting.
So, and the voice talent ranges. So we can't get James Earl Jones for $200 an hour.
No, probably not. Again, my charge would be $200. Locally, $20 to $25 an hour for the voice talent. So if it was,
Voiceover, yeah.
if it's someone might charge
Okay.
30, 35. So yeah, it again for like 3-hour book, it might be in there for 6.5, 7 hours. So you would just basically pay 2 people.
They both have to be in the studio at the same time,
No.
especially for the dialogue.
Well, it's not necessary. It would be preferable, sure. But technically, no. I could have them do it separately.
Oh, cool. All right. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You wouldn't believe how many records are out there where you hear 2 singers singing together and they've never met. Just,
Yeah. Oh, for book trailers.
Uh-huh.
I haven't got the budget to do the audiobook right off, but a book trailer would be real effective. I know it's hard to say how much the book trailer costs.
Mm-hmm. Well,
where would you start?
We're looking at probably 5 minutes at the max. So my charge for that is just a basic fee of $250. And again, you could read, you could have someone else read. I would even do it for you if you were.
Well, I'm talking the video, something we can put up on YouTube, book trailer.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That video. I mean, again, it could be you. You could pick somebody to do it for you. I could actually do the video. I could read it. But yeah, then so that would be the total charge, $250 uploaded to YouTube.
That's pretty good value. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that again, that would be if I had to travel. I might charge a little more of a travel fee, but I mean, doing it at my studio.
Okay.
And by the way, Steve's studio is down in the Phoenix area, so us Arizonans do have a little bit of a jump on this. Steve and I have talked about some of the online types of video that we could do also, perhaps even doing a Zoom presentation. So we're yet to solve that issue completely, but that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to unmute Bill here because he had a question. Okay, Bill. Uh-oh, you're not coming through.
How about now?
Yep, now you're coming through.
I tell you, this little thing, man, turns itself off. Anyhow, actually, I turn it off unknowingly. So my question was, you can get audiobooks through Apple, right? iTunes?
Yeah. In
How
fact,
does that work? Because is that price structure any better or any different or more royalties, or do you know anything about that?
It's actually included with the ACX deal. You can, and I neglected to mention that if you do your audiobook on audible.com, it's automatically available on iTunes.
Okay.
If you were to not do it with ACX, then you can also strike a deal with iTunes as well.
Okay. Do you have any idea how that compares?
It's about the same. I like the idea of having it, just going direct to iTunes. It's going to be about the same. They're going to take 50% of your profits, and then maybe, so I don't know. It's if you're gonna do it, you might as well go with audible.com, because again, it just ends up on iTunes.
Right.
Well, contrary to all you Apple advocates out there, Apple is really a small blip in this world. Amazon controls books, audiobooks, Kindles. I mean, they are the lion in the marketplace. And sure, it's good to make sure that your distribution gets out to some of these other sources as well. But, in the lawsuits on ebooks, that came about the last couple of years, it was determined in court that Kindle represented 90% of all ebook sales. And even though Apple at the time said that they represented 20%, we are already now up to 110%, and there's no Nook or Kobo books, so somebody wasn't really telling the truth, and I suspect it was Apple. But even so, Kindle might be only 80%. It's still the lion. They represent the sale. Amazon represents 70% of all book sales between, all the different types of books. So, as much as we may not like Amazon for various reasons, we want to work with them the best we can, because they are where we're going to sell our books. Any other questions or comments for Steve or Catherine? Let me just take a look at the chat box and see if anyone...
I had put a question in the chat box about...
Yeah, Leah, go for it.
Okay, so I was curious when in our publishing timeline would be the best time to create and distribute the Audible book. Would it be better to have it in conjunction with the soft and hard launch, or would it be better to have those launches and then produce an audiobook? And I'll mute myself for the answer.
This is actually a really good question, because it could go both ways, okay? Number one is that when we do our launch with Denise, she is essentially getting you to the #1 stature in Kindle, okay? That's what most of us have hit our #1 with. So we could provide during that time the audiobook as well, and we might be able to hit a #1 in one of the Audible categories as well. The other approach, and this is the one that I'm inclined to work, is that by launching with Denise in a Kindle environment, and hitting your #1, that's great. In order to keep the momentum going, I see no reason why we wouldn't want to really, to market an Audible launch as well after the fact a little bit afterwards, because #1, you probably hit #1 in Audible category, but you would also push the sales back up for your Kindle. So in order to keep the momentum going, again, Denise will set you up with a system in place that you'd be able to still leverage the huge audience that she has access to. So my feeling is that you would want to do it afterwards to keep the momentum going and hit #1 again a second time. Catherine, you got a question?
Yeah, no, I was going to make a comment and to that answer. I know that when I did What is Healing, I published the paperback and the ebook version first, and then I did the audiobook version. And I asked Denise specifically this question because she will do a separate launch for you for just the audiobook. But of course, she has a business. She would charge an extra fee for that. When I did Banish the Blues Now, what I did was I got all 3 products ready for the launch. so that when we did the launch, the readers would have a choice: ebook, audiobook, or the paperback. So it was all that way. But those of you who already published your book, your next step could be to make an audiobook. I remember asking Denise specifically, well, how much would you charge to just launch the audiobook? And she said, well, I have to think about that. So I'm not quite sure what that would be, but it would be something extra. But to answer your question about when in the production line, you need to have your book written and completely edited. So you want to have your manuscript complete, right? So you don't have to have published your book yet, but as long as it's written and edited, so that when you give the manuscript to Steve and your reader, you're not going to change something, right?
Yes.
It looked like Craig had a question. Craig, you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Yeah, I think Catherine kind of answered it for me. I guess my question for you, Rama, would have been, once the book launches happen, I'm talking about the ebook and the paperback, would it be a new push for the audio? I guess as Catherine addressed it, but I'm just saying, would Denise go ahead and make a big to do again with the audio? And then she certainly could go about she this. Could.
For Denise's program, there are basically three components. One is to get you comfortable with Twitter, okay? To teach you how to use it and teach you how to grow your Twitter account. She also does work with some of the other social medias like Facebook and Pinterest, which she's very effective at as well. Her feeling is that Twitter is the big game changer in social media for book launches. The second component of her program is that she optimizes your book inside of Amazon. So those first two components, she really would not be having to repeat for you. So it's only the third component, which is the actual launch. And she might have a lot in place for that from the first time through. So it would be a good question to ask Denise directly and get her thinking about that, especially if more and more of our team, our group, are moving into audio books, which I think everyone will be thinking about, especially now that we have somebody that we have confidence in to do the production.
Well, I've always wanted to do audio from the very beginning, and I have people in my family that are sight impaired and elderly that they can't read anymore, and I know they desperately want a piece of this book. So I think audio would be the way to go. But my question for Steve, I think Catherine's in Atlanta. I'm in South Mississippi, and I think that there's a state called Arizona, but I'm not real sure about that.
Oh, yeah.
There are rumors about it. But I just don't think I can get out there for a weekend to do it. So how would that go? How do you work with people that's, I guess, out of state?
Well,
just, I mean, I can't get into studio, right? I can't, or we do it correspondence through the computer or the phone?
Yes. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. What we do is, email me the manuscript, a PDF, and I'll start interviewing some voice talent and send you, a few, 2 or 3 or 4 different takes of someone reading some of your material, and then you can choose who you'd like to read.
I'm not a contrarian, but I try to get along with everybody and all, but I am one of them that would initially have wanted to read.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see what you're saying.
And part of the reason is not the ego thing, but is perhaps pronunciations of some of the Cajun slang.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I'm trying to get the essence of what I was writing, I guess.
Okay. Well, there are. You could go anywhere from reading it from home, or there's just certain equipment that you could get that could work.
Yes,
you have your computer, there are USB microphones that you can plug in. And the main thing, however, is ambient noise. You need to find a room where you're not hearing cars go by, slamming doors, something that's not too live sounding. But I mean, you could record the actual audio in your house, and then you could send that over the internet, and I could do the editing and so forth. So that's doable. I wouldn't recommend you doing your own editing because that is pretty painstaking. In fact, I have to go between every sentence and pull out a breath every time someone breathes.
I got you.
And then set the tempo as well. But yeah, you could record at home if you had some decent equipment.
And I probably won't end up doing it, but it's just something that, in my mind, I always felt like I possibly could do it. It's the thing about it. Now, like I said, there are a lot of words in my manuscript that,
right.
I just don't know how someone else would interpret them. Or
well, one of my sons is a voice actor. Well, he's hoping to be a voice actor, and he's got his own little setup. Again, he's got a PC with a USB mic and a couple of moving blankets, to hung up in his room, and he does auditions all the time. In fact, I intend on using him as soon as I get but the recordings that he comes up with are pretty good. And I have another client. I wanted to mention him real quick. A gentleman who, in his late 70s, early 80s, I did a little documentary, and I used him as the voiceover. And then I had an audiobook client, and I played some of that for him, and they thought it was just awesome. So we used, his name is Al Merritt. We used him on the book, and he started getting inquiries from, there's a library here in Phoenix, I forget what the name of it is, but they record audiobooks for people that, have sight impairment. And so he was going there every week. He lives in Payson, taking a drive, and that got a little bit too much for him. So he decided to set up a little studio in his house, in his office, and had a little bit of a struggle at first. But I went there and I set up his microphone and just a regular old computer, and he sent it there, and they loved it. They said the quality was great, and and again, in the editing process, I can pull out noises. I can filter, put little filters on there. So, I mean, if you're up for recording at home, I can certainly walk you through the steps.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I'm going through it right now, trying to get this thing out. So I guess maybe another month or two or something like that, or maybe after the first of the year, we might get in touch.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Just to give you a heads up, Craig, Tom purchased a fairly high quality USB mic. When we did purchase it, I made sure that it came in a nice padded box, and that is available for you to use. All I need to do is send it to you, and you can experiment.
Okay, Rama. I might take you up on that. Okay.
Anyone else have any questions for Steve or Catherine?
I do.
Okay.
I have a question for Steve. Well, first of all, so I don't know if this is, well, it's not relevant to anyone but me. So anyway, the thing is that I do my own recordings already of poems and a cappella songs, and I want to make some kind of a loop with those things interspersed with music that I definitely don't have rights to.
Mm-hmm.
Instrumental, just like one, one poem, one song. And then I want to be able to play this in a public place,
mm-hmm.
In a little kind of a tent that's set up for that. And I don't know how to do that other than I know I'm going to do it with headphones. It's not somewhere that you can make noise. So I have I just bought a kind of I don't know what it's called, but like an advanced splitter that you can put 4 different headphones into.
Right.
So, but I don't know how to get the rights to these songs, or if I should go through someone like you, if that's something that you can do, and if you have a list of the things that you do have rights to, because I want a certain sound, not just anything. And I just wonder if you have anything else to say about that. Thanks.
Sure. And that comes up a lot. If you have a product that you're going to sell, like a CD, a download of a book, you're you're going to want music that you can either buy the rights to, or you already own the rights to. If you're doing something like just something to perform live, or in a booth, or something even on YouTube, it doesn't matter. You can use copyrighted material on YouTube, and they'll send you a notice saying, "Hey, we noticed that you used somebody's song, and it's okay, you can leave the video up, but we might put a commercial on your video for them. Or, we might offer that song for sale, click here to get it on iTunes or get it on Amazon." So using someone else's music is not a problem without getting the license, unless you're going to sell a physical product. If you do want to sell a product and get a license for it, it's not that hard to do. In fact, I'll give you the information right now. It's Harry Fox Agency. Just look it up on YouTube or on Google. Harry Fox Agency, they handle just about every song out there. And they'll say, I did that to put a cover song on one of the CDs I produced. And for they have various charges for streaming. You can buy for $15, you can buy the license to sell 1,000 CDs. So Harry Fox Agency is the place to go.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to address the second part of Craig's question, because Deb McTurnan did deal with funny names that she had to define for her audiobook reader. So by using some of those Cajun terms, you can put a listing together, and you can actually work with the reader to get the pronunciations correct for those.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and what I did when I worked with my audiobook lady was with a reader, I talked with her before the recording, and we went through the manuscript, and any names or funny words, we discussed how to pronounce them, because it's a lot cheaper to fix it before you do it than have to go into the studio a second time.
Absolutely. And I definitely see your point as far as the, I forgot your name, the gentleman in Mississippi.
That's Craig.
Craig, yes. Just as you're speaking, I can hear that, your accent and your enunciation, it would be important to.
Yes, sir. And I've spent years trying not to have that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's still in there. I tell the joke around here is I can't rob a bank around here. Everyone knows the accent. So whether I had a mask on or not, they know who I was. So
that's it. Okay.
And it's not so much. I'm not that big of a deal about mispronunciations and all. But with the 10,000 Cajun families that I know, and in my own book, and if they mispronounce Bayou Lafourche,
right,
Thibodeau, Camo, Rabot, or something like that, they would look at me like, how many idiots,
I gotcha.
But I think it's like Catherine said, obviously just going over the material ahead of time, and I don't think it'd be that big of a deal, really.
Yes. Okay.
So, yeah.
Dawn, you've unmuted yourself. Do you have a question?
I do. I'm curious whether there are hidden costs to be aware of. So starting a business, writing a book, et cetera, all of a sudden you get some surprises. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious if there are any surprises to be mindful of.
I appreciate the question, and I hope not. I mean, I intend to disclose everything in advance. Again, the rate is $200 per hour. And that'll work for, like, say we have a 3-hour book and there's 25 chapters, no problem. But I mean, if there's a lot of short chapters and I have 75 chapters that I have to deal with, I'll probably charge an extra $25 an hour. Not much.
So the people that read, they're there in Phoenix already, like you audition people who are local, there's not the author paying transportation for them and that type of thing.
Exactly, yeah. No, it would be...
That's what I was thinking about.
And so, again, I mean, once I looked at your manuscript, I would say, okay, I might have to charge you a little more for this, but I'm going to tell you that up front.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do all the extras like MP3 encoding and file naming and everything, and just, make it. But no, I don't intend to hit you with anything on the backside.
Well, it wasn't about you. It was more, would I have to pay transportation for readers or that?
Oh, yeah. No.
Thank you.
I want to speak to Don's question because the bottom line to save money is to work with somebody in integrity to begin with. Because with the initial audiobook production guy, John Mahoney of Raven Audiobooks, I did have unanticipated costs because in both cases, he did not produce the files correctly. And with Audible, you get, I think, 3 chances to upload it correctly. And after that, you're banned. Ooh. And so I had to pay Greg extra money to fix the files. Greg is my hero because Greg was the one who figured out that John had not done it correctly. And John is supposedly an audiobook expert, but he ripped me off. And then I didn't know anyone else. So again, I was like, okay, I don't know anyone else, and I like the reader. And then the second time I had to pay Steve. Now heretofore, I will only use Steve. So bottom line, to save money, you have to work with somebody who does that exclusively, A, and B, they are integrity. Otherwise, you can get stiffed if things aren't done correctly.
And I just want to really define what Steve said, okay? When he was referring to the fact that if you've lots of chapters, there may be an additional cost. With Audible, every chapter needs to kind of be its own file. So that that was what he was referring to. So if you had 6 chapters in your book, that would be 6 different files. If you had 50 chapters in your book, that would be 50 files. So that's what the difference in cost might be related to.
Absolutely, yeah, and you have to upload each file separately. So thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions before we move on to breakfast? I mean lunch? Well, I want to thank you, Steve, for being part of our team. I want to thank Catherine for finding him. And I hope that some of you authors out there take advantage of Steve's services because, I am really thrilled to have an audiobook producer kind of in our fold here that we can rely on. And also I look forward to some of you doing subliminal works with him and audio or book trailers and whatever else that you can come up with. I'm sure that Steve can figure it out. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, Catherine. And thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Great. Well, thank you. All right.
Take care.
Okay.